All right, we're here at Sundance 2019 with Natalie Metzger, producer on Greener Grass, a hilarious, absurd comedy set in a suburban setting. So Natalie, why don't you tell me about how you got involved with the project in the first place, what appealed to you about this movie?
Sure. So I met Don and Jocelyn back 2.5 years ago when I did a short film for them. So they had actually been on the festival circuit with Jim Cummings when he had his short film Thunder Road, and they had their short version of Greener Grass. They had both met each other at South by Southwest, had become fast friends. Right after that, I had started producing for Jim. I produced his last 9 short films and then produced his feature film Thunder Road. So when they were looking for a producer, it was their first time directing a short. They had written and acted in 2 other ones, and then were getting ready to direct their first one. And they reached out to Jim and they said, "We need a producer, who would you recommend?" And so Jim sent them my name, and we met, and we just immediately clicked. And so I produced their short film, The Arrival, which you can find online. It's a short of the week. And then, and then when the feature came up, they just came back to me and said, "You want to do this?" And I read the script, and I fell in love with it. I had always been a fan of the short, but I thought the feature script just expanded on that world in such an amazing and clever and hilarious way, and fucked up way. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
So it was a no-brainer. They came to me, I think it was May or June when they sent me the script, and then we filmed all of August, and then now we're here.
So you've done a couple features now that are adapted from shorts. How has that been a helpful process for you to kind of do your second rodeo on a theme or a story or a setting?
Yeah, well, so what's interesting is that for both Thunder Road and Greener Grass, I didn't work on the shorts, but I met both of the filmmakers after they finished their short. But I think it's always great to have the short as like a proof of concept. It's great to just to be able to explain the creative and explain the tone, especially for Greener Grass. It's such a specific tone; it's so hard to explain. I think like having the short to be able to share with potential crew, potential cast, and just to get everyone on the same page is extremely useful. It's also helpful when like raising funds and money for Thunder Road. The short film really was kind of the allowed us to raise the funds to be able to do it. We started with a Kickstarter campaign, and then used that to kind of connect to private equity investors. So the shorts feature seems to be like the way to do it right now.
Tried and true.
Yeah, and Jim's now doing his short to feature lab, and
So I misunderstood. You did work with Jim and Don and Jocelyn on other shorts, but not the ones.
But not the ones, yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
So for Jim, so I produced his last 9 short films. So one of them was called The Robbery, which was at Sundance 2 years ago. And then, we did 5 other ones for Full Screen, and then 3 other ones for Topic. And then with the girls, so the girls didn't direct the short film of Greener Grass, but their first time directing a short, I produced that one, and that's called The Arrival.
Cool, got it.
Yeah.
This film, Greener Grass, is such a singular vision, and a lot of that, I think, can be credited to the production design and the whole setup of production. So can you talk about how you achieved the vision and what maybe was interesting about it for you?
Yeah, so Don and Jocelyn have such a clear vision of what they want, and they have such a weird, fucked up, and amazing sense of humor that it really was just kind of pairing them with the right crew that kind of have the same fucked up, weird, hilarious sense of humor. And so our production designer, Lee Poindexter, she was amazing, and she came into her interview and she had sheets of like all these different images that she already was like obsessing over after reading the script. And then she told us that she had shaved her poodles one day and saved all the shavings because she was going to knit them a sweater from their own fur. And I think once we heard that, we just knew that she was the right fit for the film. And she did an amazing job, like really kind of creating that pastel color palette and the like smallest details with finding things that are in the world that reflect the characters. Same thing for Lauren Oppelt, our costume designer. She did our short film, The Arrival, and she and the girls immediately clicked, and she just has an amazing vision. She was the one that started with the idea of color blocking the different characters. And yeah, same thing with Lowell Meyer. He had shot Thunder Road, our cinematographer, and yeah, switching over to Greener Grass was such a weird split from what Thunder Road was and the look of it and the vibe. But he like jumped in and he loved the girls since we were two. So it was really just like finding like the right team that would just that kind of had that similar sensibility.
Right. You've definitely proven you can do normal movies as well as weird ones. So I'm curious if you could tell me a little more about your producerial process or technique you use to find the right fit for a distinct voices like Jim and like the Jocelyn and Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really from like a producer standpoint, I often refer to myself as like a midwife. So I'm helping the director give birth to their baby, and it's usually and for Thunder Road and for Greener Grass, it's their first baby, and so it's scary and it's new and it's big. But yeah, so it's not my baby. It's I am there to help facilitate their baby, and so it's all about. For me, it's about finding a filmmaker that I really admire and trust and respect. And then helping them find that vision. And so for Jim, it's about this kind of like grounded realism and like living in these like long single takes. And with the girls, it's these like crazy like pastel pop, absurd, timeless suburbia. So yeah. So I think like even though they're different, for me, my job is very similar, which is finding what their vision is, what they want, and then helping facilitate it in whatever ways possible.
I think part of what makes Greener Grass succeed is that there is somehow a lot of truth in the absurdity. Even though the setting in many ways makes no sense, it's almost as if this is some kind of heightened reality in a suburban subculture that could exist. So I'm kind of curious what conversations you had with the writer-director team.
Yeah, so I think it was actually really important for the girls to keep it grounded. They say that they don't like to do weird for weird's sake, which if you watch Greener Grass, you might be surprised by that, but it's very true. Like every single element of the film is like comes from either an example of something that they saw in their own lives. They grew up as middle children in the Midwest and suburban towns, so they pulled a lot from their own lives or things that they've seen or stories that they've heard from others. And yeah, so they would take those grounded things and then heighten them, but they never just kind of grab at something kind of random and just say, oh, this is fun. Yeah, but we'd have conversations about that of what's the motivation for this? What's the impetus for this? Is this weird for weird's sake, or is this grounded?
I have to assume the budget was lower than it looks. So I'm curious if you have any insight or experiences you want to share just about getting the funding for this movie, getting the idea off the ground, what you did to...
Sure. I mean, no matter what the budget is, it feels like it's never enough. I'm prepping a new movie, even though it's even bigger. It just seems like there's never enough to be able to make the vision perfect, whether you're doing Avatar, whether you're doing Primer. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting challenge, mostly because of all the elements that are built into the script. So, they tell you to not work with children, to not work with animals, and to not work with babies, like at least on your first film. And this film had tons of all of those. And so, yeah, that was an interesting logistical challenge for sure. And we were shooting in Georgia, and something that came up for us that we're just not used to in California is it showers, like it rains just randomly throughout the day during the summer. And so and in the world of Greener Grass, there's no rain. It's perfect and sunny every day. So that was an interesting challenge as well, of just trying to work around that rain. And we kind of got lucky. There were some times when it was supposed to rain where we went for cover and covered all the paper decorations, and then it cleared up within an hour, and then we went back out and were able to get the rest of the shots of the day. But yeah, it's always a dance to try to make it all work. No matter what resources you have, but yeah, luckily we have an amazing team that all came together, and yeah, I did what I could to make it happen.
The dog seemed remarkably well behaved. You guys found a good one.
Yeah, so Jocelyn found that dog on Instagram. We had gotten a couple different trained animals, like submissions of great golden retrievers, but they didn't quite have that that look, how beautiful that dog is in the film.
He also kind of looked like a kid. No shade on the actor.
It really, that was carefully done. Yeah, he was specifically cast, because he looked like Julian. So Jocelyn went onto Instagram and found these breeders that had sires and dames, I think they call them, whatever the breeding animals are. She found a sire that she liked the look of, and then reached out to that breeder and said, did this sire have any new puppies? And so we found this 7-month-old puppy, and all of the animal wranglers told us, you can't go younger than 1. They just they can't be trained, they won't listen. But this puppy was just the perfect look, and so we had this 7-month-old puppy on set, and he did not do at all what he was supposed to. But luckily, we were able to cut it together to make it.
Tell me a bit about the evolution of your career and your mentality as a producer. What have been some of the most important things you've learned throughout all of the trial and error?
Sure. So I kind of fell into producing. I have a master's in choreography, believe it or not. And so I came from the theater and the dance world, and I was creating things for the stage, and also producing those all, kind of doing everything myself. And I started getting frustrated with the stage where you're limited with who can come and see your work. It's only the local people in the local city, and I wanted people across the country, around the world, be able to see it. And so I started filming my own choreography, just kind of bringing the actors and bringing the dancers to different interesting locations and just filming it and making these short little experimental films, and started submitting those to different festivals, and they started getting some attention, and so I was like, oh, this is fun. And so I used those to kind of jump more into commercials and music videos. And then my friend started saying, hey, can you help me make my short film the way that you did that short film? And I said, sure. And so I started helping my friends. And then people just started paying me to do it. And so once I had a bunch of shorts in my belt, then I also jumped into series and features. It was kind of just something that I just ended up kind of being good at, that I love. I have a kind of OCD brain, so I actually really enjoy spreadsheets and budgets and color coding things, and most people think it's weird, but I do really enjoy those things. But I also have the creative aspect of being a creator for the stage, so I feel like I can help when filmmakers are struggling with the script or asking a creative question. I can still bring that to the table as well. But yeah, I feel like there's a second part to your question that I'm forgetting.
Yeah, actually, I have a new one now.
Okay.
How did you get into choreography?
So I was planning on studying theater and business in college, and wanted to open my own theater someday. And I took a dance class just randomly, just for exercise, purely of I'll take this class. I had studied ballet when I was a kid, and then I took this modern class for the first time in college. And one of the professors pulled me aside, and he's like, you should major in this. And I was like, ha ha ha, yeah, no, I'm not gonna go back to my parents and say I'm majoring in dance. So I was still sticking with my theater major. And then I kept on doing more and more dance, and when I discovered choreography and being behind the camera, behind the stage, I much preferred that. And so I started doing that a lot more, and so then I double majored in theater and dance and minored in English in college, and wanted to pursue it for grad school, so I did my master's in choreography.
So that's become kind of your superpower as a producer. You have this background that not a lot of other people have, that is really, I'm sure, lends itself to wrangling actors and ACs and sound men and everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's very similar in a really odd way. And I think also, cinema is such a visual form, and I think some of the best cinema, some of the best films, some of my favorite films are things that use that don't always use dialogue, that use physicality to show something. And so I think having that kind of intense focus on body language that I just naturally kind of have from a choreography background helps.
What films?
What films? What are some of my favorite films? I love 8½. I love, this has a lot of dialogue, but Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I love Ex Machina. What else? I don't know, I'm a big David Fincher fan. Love David Fincher. Yeah.
Cool, that's interesting to know. A lot of stuff that has stagey elements to it.
Yeah, I guess that's true, yeah.
which I know a lot of younger filmmakers can underuse in their movies, the physical presence you're talking about. Right, so my other question now, segueing into that, was what have been your producing philosophies that you've adopted, or just like the big lessons you've learned that are like now in the scripture for you?
Yeah, I have a couple. I feel like find your tribe or find your family are two really, it's like the same important concept for me. In my mind, so it's all about building up this family, and some of the best sets I've been on are sets where we've worked with the same crew before, we've like developed a shorthand, and like we know what we're making, and we just do it. We like make it happen together. There's something really magical about that experience, and so I think it's important to really love the filmmakers that you're working with, really trust them. If you don't, it's going to be a miserable experience. I always say that I'm pretty much married to my directors. You spend day and night with them, and so you have to really just like being around them, and also really trust their vision, because every single thing you do is going to be for that vision. And so if you don't trust it and trust them to like really have that decisive power, then you're going to question everything. And then I guess do as much as you can in pre-production, as much as you can. Even if you plan to have the whole thing improvised, even if you plan to like figure it out on the day, the more you can do in pre-production, it really does help. Watching Jim on Thunder Road, he would like rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and he would figure out, he would know exactly what the camera movement was going to be, based on the location, based on what was happening, so that when we went in there, even though it's a really complicated single take that might normally take days to rehearse in order to like get it done, we would go in and we would get it done in like 7 takes. And so, so I think as much as you can do in pre-production, do it.
Cool. And that's the next movie you're working on, right? Is Jim's next?
Yeah, so I'm working on Jim Cummings' next film. It's called The Werewolf. We are shooting it out here in Utah, so I'm out here until April. But it's a fun one. It's crazy. It's we'll see what happens. I've been bouncing back and forth trying to prep for that, and then do all the Sundance Greener Grass stuff. But it's gonna be fun.
The movie was mostly planned out in the script, or was there a little bit of improv, or not so much?
The girls would always allow for a little bit of improv. So, but the script, they so carefully craft their script. I mean, it's down so much.
It seemed too weird to be improvised.
Yeah, I mean, so they write down to the punctuation. So really, like, if there's a comma there, they expect for there to be some kind of like pause or like acknowledgement that it's there. But once they get one take where all the lines have been said as written, then they'll usually open it up for like a couple fun takes. And there's definitely some improv moments that are included in the film. But it's all, the script is very carefully crafted.
Should we talk at all about all of the female people working on Greener Grass? It seemed like there was a huge percentage of female people on set.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Women, so female people.
Female people
That's
is also accurate. We didn't go into it. Sometimes people say like, oh, we want to hire 50% women, or like like this and that. We didn't go into the cast or crew with that in mind. But then once we were all crewed up, I was looking around and I'm like, oh, we're like 60% women, and that was totally just purely by chance. It wasn't. We just kind of were looking for the right people for the job. I think like a lot of people that responded really well to the script. It's about suburban moms. There's a lot of female stories in it, and so I think maybe that just happened to be like why. Female crew might have responded more, but we're 60% women behind the scenes and in front of camera.
That's very cool when it works out that way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.